Thank you, Joey, and welcome to Tuesday, August the 9th work session. And we're going to call the meeting to order. We'll call the roll first. Alderman Barnhill.
Here.
Vice Mayor Blanton, absent. Alderman Hanson.
Here.
Alderman Peterson.
Here.
Alderman Berger.
Here.
Alderman Brown.
Here.
Alderman Potts.
Present.
Alderman Baggett.
Here.
And the mayor is here also. So we next have an opportunity for citizen comments for items that are not on the agenda. I have a speaker card, but I understand that he hasn't shown up. Les Whitley, okay. We'll continue to move along then. We'll go to report from the Franklin Sustainability Commission. This is their annual report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Alderman. I've got Todd Palmer, the current chair of the Franklin Sustainability Commission, and he's going to go through some slides, and then we have two policy guides that we'll quickly review.
Thank you. My name is Todd Palmer, and I am the chairman of the... Sorry. My name is Todd Palmer, and I am the current chairman, soon to be rotating off chairman and member of the Sustainability Commission. I work at Middle Tennessee Electric. I've recognized several faces up here and want to thank you for your time and giving us a chance to speak a little bit about what the Sustainability Commission is working on, where we've been, and where we're going. So, give you a real quick rundown. Let's take a look at our commission. Currently, we have myself as the chair. Mike Cassidy serves as our vice chair, Chase Harper, Dana Coase, Eric McElroy, John Brevard, and Keith Gordon, and Alderman Bev Berger. So we appreciate the work that they do with us on the commission each year. We typically meet on the second Friday of each month around 8 a.m. In the past, we've done that on the first Friday. But unanimously about a year ago, we decided that we would change that up, and it worked well. So, but we meet once a month, typically 8 to 9 times a year. Currently, and what we're actually here for today, and Eric and Andrew will get into the waste reduction and transportation policy guides. That's what we've been working on this last year to bring forward our recommendations and hopefully show some new policy that we'd like to move forward with. We do conduct an annual litter survey each year as part of our commission. We enjoy that. We break into groups and go right out into different areas of our communities. We grade between a 1 and a 4 and kind of figure out what needs attention and what doesn't. So that's been a real success and something we do each year. We're always looking for potential improvements to the city's recycling initiatives. Andrew and I work to collect the energy usage. As I work at Middle Tennessee Electric, we worked on that to collect the totals so we can keep an eye on our energy usage. We are always looking for sustainability best practices. That's another piece of our efforts each year and how that translates to the city of Franklin. And finally, we just recently participated in a trip to Annexor this past June, which was really neat because we like to go explore businesses and things in our community that are doing sustainable things, such as what they're doing, which they're doing on-site generation and waste diversion. We found that to be a very beneficial trip. Hopefully generate some ideas and hopefully grow things that we can do within our commission to support these efforts in our community. And here's where we're at. We're looking for this next year. We want to, with the City Hall and the new project coming, you may remember a couple of years ago, we actually achieved the silver level of LEED certification. So we want to align that with the building of the new City Hall. So that's something that's on the agenda to keep in mind as we move forward. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, we coordinating with the staff again this next year and city volunteers on our litter pickup and that project we do as part of a commission and a group. And then, of course, always investigating the city's recycling initiatives to try to make those better. And finally, again, we're going to jump into it. We work towards the goals to establish and maybe some new goals and policies for next year that we'll bring forward. With that said, you may remember last year we appreciate the endorsement of the 2021 Energy Guide policy. We've completed those efforts. And, again, we're here today to talk a little bit about the waste reduction and transportation policy. I'll let Eric and Andrew speak on that. But are there any questions about who we are and what we've done? So, thank you.
Todd. So we'll transition here into just a quick little bit of a rundown of our draft transportation and mobility policy guide. So as you may remember from the energy use policy guide, we work on these as a commission, and then we'll bring them forward to you for just general feedback here at this meeting, and then bring them back to you with any sort of changes garnered from that feedback for ultimately, hopefully, an endorsement. So this policy guide really took into account a lot of the feedback that we received from our citizen survey each year, as well as some of the feedback that we received from our walkability application, and the feedback that we received from that, and our ultimate not denial, but non-endorsement of the walkability here in Franklin. And so taking some of that feedback and making those action items and ultimately goals. So if you look at the top 3 policy statements, these are the ultimate goals of this guide: to 1, reduce the peak hour travel times here in town; 2, to provide a safe and effective multimodal option for transportation; and 3, to provide safe pedestrian and bicycle connections between residential areas and our local destinations. And ultimately, 2 and 3 will help gain traction for number 1, to reduce those overall travel times. Now, some of the actionable items that we put forward are to improve traffic flow on existing streets by utilizing adaptive signalization projects, establish an evaluation process for our completed capital improvement projects. Right now, we don't look back to see how effective those capital improvement projects are. So we think it would be very beneficial for us to either, ask the public about how they're using them, how effective it is, but to just garner some feedback regarding those projects that we have put money into. To increase youth engagement citywide and encourage local schools to establish a Safe Routes to School program to help ease that peak pickup and drop-off traffic that occurs, as we're seeing especially this week, being back to school, and just try to reduce some of the traffic that's caused by those times. And to just increase the public knowledge of the available multi-use paths and trails through mapping and outreach, just to make sure that people are aware of the other options that may be available to them in their neighborhood or around their homes. And ultimately, just to increase, the sidewalk and multi-use trail connectivity that we have here across Franklin. So if we're going to spend our time advocating and letting people know about the routes that we have, we should make sure that all of them do connect and work to achieve that. So those are just a few quick rundown of the action items. You can take a closer look at those, and if you have any questions about those, feel free to contact us. We also do have a handful of different stats regarding commuting in Franklin and the walkability in Franklin, and one that I'll just highlight quickly here is from the 2019 Citizen Survey. Approximately 10,300 citizens live and work in Franklin, and 80% of them commute by vehicle alone. So ideally, we would like to reduce that number and get people off the roads and going to work in some sort of different fashion. And even if 10% of those citizens decide to walk or bike to work, then it would have a drastic difference in those peak travel times that we're seeing here in town. So I'm happy to answer any questions about transportation related things. If not, I'll hand it over to Andrew, and he'll go over our waste reduction policy guide. Great.
We all know that, sorry about that, long reach. We all know that transportation's a different kind of animal these days as far as work continues to morph into different scenarios that maybe we're not quite fully aware of yet. And companies are evaluating, especially letting people work from their home offices. A lot of them have put together home offices, so they're especially allowing people to work 2 days, sometimes 3 days from home. So that is going to create a different scenario. Now we can say, oh, we see the traffic's all back, but it is different, and who knows what a year will bring or 2 years will bring. And I think it's still going to morph into all these different scenarios that we're going to see different things that we probably can't gauge. So I think that's a discussion and probably something we will look at, because we're always talking about mass transportation, which is not a bad thing, which is a good thing in some ways that we need it, but at the same time, people love their cars. We can't get people out of their cars too easily. But again, with our mixed-use developments, just something like Eastworks, for instance, if people lived in that area that's going to be developed mixed use and they can walk down the street on Carruthers to some of those buildings, or bike, that would be great. And I think these are the things we talk about in our Sustainability Commission meetings too. So I just want to throw that out there because I know that people are probably thinking, well, what about, you know, these scenarios that are happening out there that we really don't have a great handle on yet, but we know it's still, as I said, morphing into whatever. Yeah, that's all.
Did I hear, what was the number you gave for people commuting into Franklin to work?
So based on the data that we received from our consultants for the Goose Creek study, approximately 66,000 people work in Franklin, but commute from outside city limits.
Okay,
The 10,000 number is citizens that live and work.
And work.
Within city limits.
Okay, thank you, Eric. The waste reduction policy guide is the third one, and I'd like to highlight the policy statements and then quickly go over some of the action items. Policy statement number one, the city seeks to promote existing waste reduction programs, so programs that we already have, and how can we make those better and more successful. Number two, new opportunities should be evaluated that would further our waste reduction efforts. And number three is litter, which has increased over the years. So litter along streets and waterways should be monitored and collected promptly. So we have 11 action items. Action items 1 through 4 are about increasing recycling participation, which right now it's around 62%. So we'd like to take that up a little bit to 75. We'd like to look at ways to handle glass and large cardboard, improve and promote the BOPE program, and increase capacity for the brown bag program, which has been very successful over the last several years. And then action items 6 and 7 are about litter pickups along roadsides and our waterways. Action items 5, 8, and 9 are looking at some new opportunities. And then action items 10 and 11 are about how we can inform the public, make them aware of what's going on and what's available. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions or discuss offline.
I do have one question.
Go ahead, Alderman.
Yes, sir.
Is there any, do you do any crossover with the county? In other words,
We did, we
you
had a
have the
meeting.
convenience centers there, you have,
Yes, sir. We did meet with the operator of the recycling process that does all the recycling processing. He came to one of our meetings earlier this year and presented an idea that he had. So we are engaging with them on that.
so what was his idea?
His
Do you remember?
idea was to, instead of having several little convenience centers, to have one giant hub, like one big hub or 2 or 3 hubs, where you would come to maybe like a busy shopping area. It would be located somewhere near a grocery store, somewhere that you're going to pass by and drop off your recyclables, and then actually be able to see it being processed. So they like the idea of having it in a centralized, convenient location where you can actually see what's being done, so you can kind of verify that it's not just being hauled to the landfill.
We used to have them at places where grocery stores were, so that's an
Yeah.
interesting.
So it would be like
Interesting new idea.
It would be a storefront, so it'd be
So-
more of a
Okay,
storefront with a
okay.
processing
I've got a-
component.
I've got a question for you.
Go ahead,
All
Alderman
right,
Byrd.
so, are we going to have them come in and do a presentation to administration, or, because we had talked about that?
Yes. Yeah, we had talked about
Okay.
engaging with city
Because
leadership first.
I think there is a possibility of some, I think this plan has merit. I really do. But how they would do it, say you take, just an instance, Kroger's down here on 96, and you'd have an empty storefront that went out. They can get that empty storefront, they just put on a nice front, and they put these windows there. So when you're going to the grocery store every week, or every 3 days, or every whatever, you can put your recyclings in a bag, you can take them and you just go walk up and throw them in the window. There's just a few people behind those windows that take those out there in the bins, and they take those bins and empty them, and then they crush them right there, and they're all wrapped up, ready to go, so they're already sorted. So the problem is that it's not sustainable to send all this stuff in just one huge lump with everything in it, and then they have to sort these things. They're sorting them by hand. This eliminates that, and it sorts them right there. It compresses them, and it puts them on trucks and takes them away. It's quite a unique operation. I think there's a lot of merit to it, and I'd like for that presentation to be brought, and maybe we have a meeting and then we bring it to the board. So I just want to say that I thought it was very well done.
Just a little addendum there. I think they're gonna tear down the county recycling center and build a new one,
Different location.
different
Different
location.
location.
Probably more close to the landfill.
Yeah, by the county landfill is the
Yeah.
area they're looking at.
And the county does contract with this gentleman that is running this and has this idea and is working with that, and the county's encouraging him to, you know, bring this into a better presentation so that we can actually take a look at it, county, cities, all the cities in their county as well.
We would welcome more partnership with the county on recycling.
Yeah,
We
I know
used
we
to
did.
have more.
I know we
And for
did.
whatever reason, over the years, that has dissipated. So we'd love to have that
Yeah.
conversation of opportunities and options for
And
it.
this gentleman was mentioning that as well, so
Okay,
there's a lot of good potential.
Well,
you got
Eric,
one more?
Yeah, one of the things was, I think just like Kroger and some of the other places those were, I think they wanted them gone. So it wasn't necessarily that the county backed out of doing any of that. I think that we were looking at moving those bins and doing something with them rather than, because you're right, I noticed it.
Yeah.
When you said what you said, the reason I asked what I asked,
Our citizens like that.
yeah, well, they like that, yeah. But then we had it. We
Yeah.
had it in more than one place in Franklin.
Yeah, all that gets, they get rid of all that.
Yeah.
the storefront.
It's an interesting idea.
They get rid of that ugliness, they get rid of what was really unsafe. Good. All of it.
Okay, we'll keep moving along. Thanks, good job.
Thank you.
Good seeing you, Todd. We're gonna go to the Franklin Public Arts Commission Annual Report. And they're gonna take items 2, 3, and 4, it looks like.
You're gonna see a lot of me for a little bit here. It's all good.
Hello, guys. I am the liaison to the Public Arts Commission, and this is our chair, Gary Bogren, and he's going to take you through our annual report.
Yeah, if you can slide that to the middle. So good afternoon, everybody. Mayor, Board of Aldermen, Eric. My name is Gary Vogren. I'm the chair of the Public Arts Commission, and I'm a landscape architect, land planner in the daytime job, and this is kind of nice to be on this side of the table, so I appreciate your time to see and what we're doing and be monitored by the mayor for the Franklin Public Arts Commission. So provide this annual report. Just a few slides, and then we'll get through some of the projects we've been working on, so thank you. So back in 2016, the Public Art Working Group began looking into establishing a public art program for the city of Franklin. Seems so long ago, since 2022, but group included members of Downtown Franklin Association, Franklin Tomorrow, Williamson County Conventions Visitors Bureau, as well as local artists and educators and city staff. After months of research, studying art programs throughout the country, and input from the Mayor and Board of Aldermen, the Franklin Arts Commission was created in 2017. Since then, we've created applications, process, guidelines that we review arts as they come in through our board. Our mission, it's a lengthy one there, so I'll just mention a couple of highlights. It's really committed to creating community through public art and builds upon community support to conserve, preserve, and make available public art to citizens and visitors. The Franklin Public Art Program aims to enrich the community through integration of vision of work of artists into planning, design, and construction of great public spaces. Our members, our star-studded cast there, myself, Vice Chair Nan Zierden, Alderman Blanton, who I wish she was here, to thank her immensely for being our liaison to you all, Kelly Harwood, Tina Perrette, David Reynolds, Ashley Roberts, Mindy Tate, and Megan Weisinger. So I thank them for their participation on our board. We've had 2 new members, being Mindy, Megan, and Tina, so we welcome them as well. We meet the 3rd Wednesday of every month at 4 o'clock, and both look at projects that are either on private property, public property, or just different opportunities for art in our community. So it's great. So I just kind of run through a couple projects that we've seen and come through us, and we have one tonight that y'all are going to vote on as well and look at. So the Midnight Sun project by Janelle Mayer was a part of a scavenger hunt created by the Williamson County Convention and Visitors Bureau. There's about 7 or 8 of these through the community that are around town and private property. The second was the Shadow of the Harpeth, next to Harpeth Square and Simmons Bank, representing the river. It's a bike rack, integral to the streetscape and active at the corner of the street. Next one was, this is probably the most popular one, the Greetings from Franklin on Hillsborough Road by Michael Cooper. Great little showpiece mural within the city of Franklin. Then we had Let Your Light Shine, which is on Columbia Avenue, another mural. This one was unique in that it was done in honor of Raymond Cruz, a young gentleman who was from Centennial High School who passed away, and this was just a tribute to him, and it was very special. So that was something pretty cool on Columbia Avenue. The next one, the Spring Fling, off of Columbia Avenue next to the Avondale project on the back of a Caliber Collision Facility in Columbia. Very unique piece of art there. We all know this was a collaborative effort by everyone for the March to Freedom. The Fuller Story project on the square, a very unique project. Everyone's proud of that, so that was part of something we reviewed and came to you all. And then the one tonight that you're going to look at is the Rural Plains in the Rear View, which is within Berry Farms on the side facade of Publix on Captain Freeman Parkway, adjacent to some residential. So that's going to come to you before next agenda, I guess. So we're just proud of some of the things that have come through our board and had a chance to look at. So the next one is kind of our outlook. The thing we're looking at right now is kind of collaborating with you all in the Parks Department in terms of creating artwork on the bridge at Harlesdale Farm, connecting the community over the Harpeth River to Chestnut Bend and all the great trails that are in our community. So there's 4 pieces of art that could be commissioned on this piece of, on this art, or this bridge. The funding's in place as part of that opportunity. So we're going to send an RFP to get opportunity for someone to commission these 4 pieces and work with the city of Franklin to be part of this project. So something unique to add to our community in addition to just a bridge, but something that provides art as well. It connects trails as well altogether. But in general, we're really just trying to continue and promote and encourage public art throughout the community. The next item we'll talk about after that is the public art development fee. That's been always the challenge of how do you get art and how do you get fees and how do you get something get paid for through either a development project or maybe there's potential grants or just ways we can fund some of these pieces, because typically that's coming in from private property, and really the first public one is the one on the bridge and the Fuller Story. So this is kind of unique that we'd like to talk about after this. Then it's really just the funding mechanism that kind of segues into. So I want to thank Monique, Vernon, and Candace that have been helping us out through all the meetings, and our board members. So we appreciate the opportunity to present to you all. So any questions, be glad to hopefully assist and help out. So thanks.
Any questions about 2, 3, and 4?
Yes.
Yeah,
There's gonna be a presentation on
Yeah,
Separate
we're-
presentation.
Oh, separate
Yeah, they're
presentation.
separate.
Gotcha, okay.
I'll just stay
Any
here.
questions? Are you going to say anything else about the Hughes Crossing mural?
Well, I'll just
Yeah,
say
that's
that,
good.
FPAC.
That's the next agenda.
That's the next item.
Yeah, I was just trying to do them all at once.
Okay, that's fine. Works for me.
Go ahead.
FPAC did review this mural brought to us by Bull Development. It's gonna be at 5021 Hughes Crossing, which, as Gary said, is on the side of a Publix building. And they are recommending 6-0 for approval.
Side of which building, can you tell us?
Publix first, right?
Oh, it's on the side.
Yeah, it's actually facing Captain Freeman Parkway.
Oh, yeah.
So
okay.
you got the front of the Publix,
Yep.
and then as you go to the right side of Publix, if you're going north, they'll be on that left side of the wall there. And it's kind of a little cutout, it's already been kind of prepared for. They anticipate doing some public art there, so something unique to bring the Berry Farms history, so,
This is privately funded.
correct.
Yes.
What medium is this? What materials? Is that a paint?
It is a painting.
Yeah, it's a paint, it's a mural on an existing,
It's just,
Yeah, this is just a
panel.
rendering of
Yeah.
the images that they want.
looks beautiful. Nice.
yeah, it's a pretty sizable piece, and
Like
it's
it.
kind of framed in by
Love-
white
love
brick of the
the horse.
It'll be
Publix.
400 square feet.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
sizable.
Right, the person is just a very small,
Yeah.
standing up there, very small.
I love it.
How about item 4?
Mr. Mayor, as we move to item 4, I'll just say I think that looks great. We've had a lot of great support over in Berry Farms for that, too.
Thank you.
Item 4, public art development fee.
Well, I think the purpose tonight is to introduce this concept to you and get some feedback and see if you would like there to be some additional work on developing this structure more completely for your consideration. So before we get too far down the road, want to run the idea by you, get feedback, and then have that feed into our work and something we might bring back for more direct consideration. So Gary and Vernon, take it away.
Exactly. Thank you, Eric, Mayor, Alderman. Good to see you, and Gary, thank you
Thanks,
for
Vernon.
being here. I'd like to, just react to the presentation that Gary and Monique made. It was back in about 2016 when a group of citizens, some business owners, came and approached us and said they'd like to have a more dedicated focus on art in the community, and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen established the Public Arts Commission. And you can see what's come to fruition, and it's exciting and very rewarding, particularly to be able to work with a group of citizens. Mindy and Kelly are here.
Yeah, I failed to mention, there's a few of our board members in the audience, so thank you for attending and supporting us.
And Gary and others that have rolled off the board, some are educators too, that know the importance of art. And let's face it, in Middle Tennessee, we have art all around us. But nevertheless, there are well over 350 public art programs around the country. And many of them have a funding mechanism. Some are called a percent for art. And the Public Arts Commission, Gary, Alderman Blanton, who serves as the board liaison, asked that we look at this and bring some framework forward for you to consider and just acknowledge if you want us to develop it further. It's not something we have to create from scratch, as there's many models around the country. And I'd like to explain very briefly what that framework looks like. We know that public art in a community in all its mediums helps enrich us. And we're starting to see that with the presentations, both from economic growth, people that travel around the country, for example, looking at murals or sculptures. A cultural understanding, and we've had a discussion recently, not only with the soldier on the square, but also in recognition of maybe Mr. Gentry as a sculpture of how our community has evolved in recognizing that culture in our history. And then it's just a sense of belonging. People have a connection to art, and we see that with the music industry in many ways, and it helps sustain our economy. So when we look at a percent for public art, what is common, as I mentioned, is that communities establish a fee for non-residential development, greenfield or building additions, in which they would pay 1% of their building permit valuation that we obtain when we get building permits, and that would go into a fund, so to say, that the Public Arts Commission and the board can use to commission their own artwork or offset artwork that's being done by private development. And again, we're looking at applying it to just greenfield development, new projects, and then non-residential building building additions. Exemptions would be residential development, private public schools, places of worship, not-for-profits that are investing in our community, any county, state, federal civic buildings, sewer and water projects, and other utilities that do work would be exempted from it. And then anything else that you may see. We would apply it to new buildings and structures and capital projects that are regularly occupied. For example, a city hall, which we hope to incorporate some public art, as well as, say, fire halls, that we would apply that fee to ourselves in capital projects. Again, not for road and sewer and water infrastructure. So the fee would always be collected at the time of the issuance of the building permit. The reimbursement of fee would be very similar to our road impact and parkland fee. If a private development incorporates public art, then they wouldn't have to pay the fee, or they'd actually get reimbursed. And the value of having this in place is that it will provide some added resources in the event that the private development wants to do something larger in scale that exceeds what they normally would pay in. Or if they want to do something somewhere in and around the community in a public or open space. Generally, you know, as we do with our parkland and road impact fee ordinances, the reimbursement would not exceed what they would normally pay in that 1% fee on their building permit. And then the FPAC and BOMA would ultimately approve any reimbursement in their normal process of approving the public art piece, as we just did this afternoon with the mural in Berry Farms. That's in a very simple way how this would be set up. And again, we're just looking for your guidance to go back and draft something for your review and consideration. And again, Alderman Blatton, unfortunately, isn't here to talk to it, but the Public Arts Commission, led by Gary, has asked to bring this forward.
Appreciate it.
I think Alderman Hanson had. and then
Couple
I'll
of
go to Alderman
questions.
Baggett.
Under this proposed additional fee, couple of things. How much would you propose or project that we're going to raise each year off of that, based on current development standards that are in the pipeline?
I'll get back to you. As a coincidence, Catherine's going to talk about our development report here. And if we look at non-residential at the valuation, we could take 1% of that, and that would be a fair projection based on the last year.
But I did notice in that same report you're referencing that we're going to get to later that our permit fees are extensively higher than they have been in the past, but our actual development is down considerably. So I'm concerned that we're going to be lumping more fees on top of what's already an excessive fee for development, even if it's not residential. And I pulled Metro Nashville's arts funding, and they do 1% of the net proceeds of any general obligation bond issued for construction projects defined by ordinance. In other words, it's taxes for me instead of taxes for thee, that they use towards 1% for art projects. And I wouldn't have any problem if we had that fund and a building wanted to request a grant or a matching to do an art project on their commercial development. But I am not leaning towards any more fees for these developments of any kind right now. I think we need to look at what we can do ourselves as a city and work on grants and public endowments to help enhance our public arts. Thanks.
Alderman Baggett?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and I think clearly, I think everyone up here would probably agree that public art is an overall good thing for the community. And I think it's how we get there. One kind of unintended consequence I just would like for you all to think through is, would this result in order to avoid paying the fee, will we start getting a lot of commercial buildings with art on the side of it? I mean, and that's fine, but do we really want all of our commercial, there could, yeah. I mean, if a developer we're gonna have a lot of commercial buildings with paintings on the side of it, which I think is completely appropriate in certain places, but also I don't want inadvertent consequences of developers putting paintings on the sides of buildings when it may not, and I guess the commission would have to approve of it.
Right.
So that's the check, but wouldn't want us to start seeing one singular kind of public art because of this fee is driving developers to paint the side, put art on the sides of buildings, when maybe better for the community to have different types of art.
Right.
And so just think through that. I do hate adding more fees. And so any other ways too, it seems like we've had a fair amount of private folks doing this on their own volition, and thinking through and communicating maybe through the development committee, what ways could we incentivize people to do this on their own, and then come up with maybe I kind of lean towards, if we believe in public art as a city, then we may need to let's look at how much should we fund that through the capital kind of program instead of necessarily tapping just fees, or maybe it's a combination of the two. If we believe in it, you're not penalizing just new development, and we have a little bit more control over the public art we have. So I would say look at the balance of, of what that number is that Alderman Hanson brought up, and then what could we look at. I wouldn't think it would be significantly impactful to the capital program to be looking at some nominal amount every year that is not tied to a fee, and then have some sort of maybe it's a smaller fee, maybe it's a more directed guidelines for the public art, and the developer can do that. But I'd like to see something other than just we have a fee, we get a bucket of money, and we decide to deal with it. I think maybe where's this going, and what is the end goal, and are we going to get what we want out of this? And should we appropriate money to maybe guide that instead of just asking developers to pay for all of it?
Alderman Peterson.
I had a question first, but not to get the answer right now. How does the 1% fee for this compare to the other fees that we charge for building? I mean, our other building fees, because we have the things like that they have to put a certain amount in for roads and other things like that.
Facility
And
fees and
I just want to see how this compares to that other, because there's some other things that that are extremely not only nice but crucial for us.
Any other comments? Alderman Brown.
I agree with Alderman Baggett. At some point, sidewalks and roads and art, everything being tied to development, we're constantly waiting on somebody to build something in order for us to get funded to do something. And I think if art is important to our city, I think we need to fund it. If sidewalks and connectivity are important to our city, we need to fund it. And we do in some places, but the point being that most of the time we're waiting for those gaps to get filled through some development. Same is true with the art. And I think also the only other thing I'd ask is, do we want the art spread out throughout, or are there some areas where we want to concentrate that, from a tourist perspective, from a resident perspective? To me, the art and the sidewalk, I'm putting them together because at some point, I think our current residents, we need to do stuff for them, not just for the folks that are moving in and the developers that we're building. So I think art would be great. I'd love to see Bicentennial Park have a piece of art,
And that's not going to be a development that's going to fund that necessarily. And so at some point, we're going to have to do that. So I think we just have to prioritize what are the things that are important to our current residents, people coming in. And if these are important things to us, if we want to be an artistic community, then let's look at that as a specific initiative.
Alderman Potts.
Yes, sir, thank you. I love the idea of the art. I'm really excited about what you've already shared tonight. I think those are really going to add to the city. On slide 5, in the last bullet point where you talked about it doesn't necessarily need to be located on the project site, I might challenge the commission to kind of really think about that vision, and maybe it kind of lends to what Alderman Brown was just talking about focal areas of art. When we talk about connectivity, maybe there's connectivity and art, going together right now. So, but I am in favor of seeing more art in these newer areas, and it's not to take away from those residents that have lived here, but I think that it adds that visual aesthetic, play on words here, artistic feel for that area when they can do that. But I am concerned that we would just get a lot of murals just popping up, as that's kind of a hot thing right now. I'd like to really know what kind of blend of art mediums that we could have.
Thank you.
Alderman Berger, then Alderman Barnhill.
Oh, go ahead, Clyde, let him go.
When I sit here and listen to this, I think that if it's developer driven, or if it's whoever's doing the project, if they want the art there, then the art commission's function is this, to see if it's appropriate. They need to come to you, see if it is, but I don't see another fee being added on to development. I mean, it may be 1%, maybe something else. I'm not sure how that works unless we're taking that fee to put something where there's not development, okay? And, if you want to do that, put it in a capital improvements project or something other, and let it go for that then. But I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon as far as another 1% fee on what we've already got until I see something that's a little bit more clearer than this right here. And you may want to do your ordinance, and you may want to bring it back. I don't know what you've heard tonight, but I don't think you've heard just the overwhelming jumping up and down and joyful glee that this is a good project to come before the board. It may be something that we want to look at further, but it doesn't. I don't think that's what I've heard. But I just don't see another fee being added on to the fees that we've already got. It costs a ton of money now. A ton and a half. Well, it was a ton last year, a ton and a half this year.
Doesn't get any smaller.
Go ahead, Alderman Berger.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate your presentation and your efforts here, but I'm just going to come right out of the gate and tell you I'm a hard no. Just a hard, absolutely no. I will not support another fee. I will not. I think there are other ways to do this. And I think we need to do this. I think we need to have art in our community.
Oh, yeah.
We went to Carmel, Indiana, and saw all the art around the city. Actually, it was pretty excessive, but I thought, wow, this is overdone.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But you know what I mean. But yeah, so I don't know how a lot of other communities do it, but I'm sure you've looked into that possibly. But if we're going to do it on public property, I think the government should put art in this setting here that we have, if we have a new city hall. I think it's up to us to do that. I think that's part of it. But I don't think we alone need to do that. I think it'd be public property, could be a city and community partnership. I think we have to have buy-in with our community. I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask. It never hurts to ask. Even with affordable housing, a long time ago, I sat down with people and I said, why have we never put together an endowment where we can go out and buy land? Why we have never, this is years ago. Sit down, let's have a meeting, let's talk about this. I would be glad to help you put together an endowment and a way, a mechanism to raise funds. never took me up on it. We never went down that, and we've wasted 15 years, 12 years of, hey, we could do this. Brought it up again, hey, we could do this. But for some reason, there's not the will to do that. I think we have the will to do that with public art. I think we do have a community partnership with people, and we can also get contributions, donation, fundraising, grants, all of the above. And then we have events in this town for everything.
Yeah.
Everything. We have a giving community, we have a wealthy community, and we have successful companies here. Let's put all these people together. If we need to, let's sit down and have a brainstorming session. We've got people working in PR and promotions here. A lot of us do different things in our day job. There's a lot of mechanisms to use here that I think we can employ and put to work rather than putting on another fee. So I just will be a hard no.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
So just rough numbers. I mean, you look at Harpeth Square, let's just say it was $80 million. They would have paid an $800,000 public art fee. Is that the right math? 1%?
Yeah.
It's not cheap.
No, 80,000.
80,000.
80,000, excuse me.
800.
That's a zero.
That'd be nice, but
Zero. It's just math. No, 80,000. So that
Yeah.
listen, I think the fee. This is thank you for correcting me, and that's why I asked. But I think there's another way to do this than just a fee. I think there's and also, I don't know if it's a combination of like, so if there's a parkland, they have a parkland fee and they decide to do the parkland on the site, like if it's for the live work units, not, because they're not exempt. Maybe there's something there where there's some incentive to do the public art by, I don't know, y'all can figure that out. But I just think getting more creative with, and not just a fee, but more incentive for individual developers to do this on their own volition. Again, I think this is going to, not to reiterate, but most of the murals would be, I guess, in Cool Springs. If we do this route with the commercial buildings, Cool Springs and/or Ward 3, right? Because that's where most of I don't know that that's the overall goal that we have. I don't know that that's the Art Commission's vision either. Again, I think we all want public art, but I think this has been good conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Those are a lot of things you talked about, we were talking about too, because, there's a lot of things we want to have incentivized or otherwise, so thank you. What was the number you threw out there?
80 million.
Oh, 80, okay. I thought you said something else.
Let the record show.
His math is
Let
correct.
the record show.
She's rolling her eyes.
All right.
Appreciate it, Patrick.
We need to keep rolling. We got one report at the end, may take 30 minutes, so how about the development report, activity report? And I think Vernon and Catherine, or Catherine and et al.
Catherine.
Good evening, Mayor Moore, members of the board. I'm back for your second quarter development activity report. This report is going to be a little bit different than the last one. With the second quarter, it wraps up perfectly with the first 6 months of the calendar year, as well as the end of the fiscal year. So this report will be in two parts. It'll be the calendar year update and the fiscal year 2022 review of all of our development activity. And before I really get into it, I want to put it into context. I'm not an economist, but I can say that the last few years, the best word to describe it is uncertain. I feel like we've been saying that for a couple of years now. We're still seeing inflation. We still have material and labor shortages and global fuel impacts and also rising interest rates. There are a lot of things going on in the economy right now. Despite this, and especially in Nashville, despite inflation, consumer spending is still pretty high, and we still have a pretty strong housing market, which have been really good things for our local economy. And we really see that reflected starting with our calendar year, mid-year update. And if you look at this chart here, it's the last 5 years of our permit numbers as well as the fees that we've collected. So far, we've issued 3,038 permits, which is consistent with where we've been in 6 months for the last 5 years. Same thing with permit fees. So far, we've collected a little over $1 million. In additional fees, we've collected almost $2.7 million. And in water and sewer, we've collected a little over $1.3 million. And if you look at the previous years, all of these numbers are pretty consistent. Except 2018.
was pretty strong.
Yes.
So the additional fees, Catherine, just to clarify, that's things
Yes.
like road impact fees?
That is road impact
Okay.
fee, that is road impact, that is facilities tax, plan review fees, and a couple of other smaller fees that we collect.
Those do tend to kind of come in a chunk.
Yes,
As
they do.
opposed to permit fees, which kind of come more with construction. These come in sort of a chunk at a time. So it's a little different, and it depends on the timing of an individual development.
Depends on the type
So-
of project
And the
also.
type of project, yes,
Yes.
because
Some of
not
it,
all of them pay all the
your-
fees.
Some of your road impact fee is based on exactly what it says. So your larger traffic generators, like the multifamily buildings that you'll see the permit numbers there, will generate a higher road impact fee also.
Yep. And I also wanted to give you more of a visual. When we look at permits issued and permit fees collected, like you mentioned in 2018, we did have a huge spike, and especially in fees, when you look at 2015 to 2018, we did have a lot higher numbers. But if you've seen since 2018, really starting with 2019 moving forward, we've really evened out, both in the permit numbers that we've issued and fees that we've collected. Additional fees, so like road impact and facilities, are going to be different. That's just like Tom and Eric have said, just the nature of the developments that that come through for us. Another part that I really wanted to touch on, because this one is really interesting to me, is our construction valuation. When somebody applies for a building permit here, one of the pieces of information that we ask from them is the construction value of the project. And so we collect and track that data. So far, the construction value of permits is at $303 million. That is a 59% increase from where we were this time last year. So you can tell that there's probably a multiple things going on there. Inflation is probably one of them. Also, just the nature of the developments that are coming through. We have several really big developments that came through in these last 6 months. McEwen, Northside multifamily is one of them that I can think of off the top of my head, and those will generate pretty high construction values. Another one, this is within the last 5 years, is new dwelling units. So far, we have added or permitted 640 total new dwelling units. If you look at the light green color, that is multifamily, and you can tell that we have had a large spike in that in the last few years. We have issued permits for 430 new multifamily units. In single family, we have issued so far permits for 132 new units, new single family homes. And if you look at the dark green, that is townhomes. So far we've issued about 78 permits for those, or added new dwelling units. And with that, I'm going to move to the fiscal year 22 review. A lot of this is going to be the same types of information, but you'll see here at the chart, in 2022, we issued about 5,670 permits. That's a little over 600 fewer permits than what we issued last fiscal year. Now, while that's lower than what we normally issue, the permit fee, or the fees that we've collected, are still rather consistent with the last 4 years, 4 fiscal years. Permit fees, we've collected almost $2.2 million in additional fees. So road impact and facilities, we collected more than last year at around $9.1 million. And in water and sewer, we collected a little bit more than we did last year, coming in at about 4.1, almost $4.2 million.
Are those, can that increase kind of be correlated to the 59% increase in construction value? I mean, because are the fees tied to construction values?
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that, you noticed the slide before where you noticed the spike in the multifamily development, the same thing, that your construction cost and your construction valuation on those buildings really went up for labor cost, material costs, and all those things.
And again, I wanted to highlight that we did issue about 10%, we have about a 10% decrease in the number of permits that we issued from this time last year. But again, I wanted to highlight that when you look at the graph, you really see from 2019 onwards, we really do start to even out on the number of permits that we issue. And you see it again here when you see permit fees collected. We tend to collect in the last 4 years anywhere between $2 million and I would say probably about $2.4 million. And so in the last 4 years, we've really seen a kind of evening out. And again, additional fees are very different, as you can see with a lot of the spikes, the peaks and the valleys. And again, very heavily dependent upon the types of development plans that we get or the permits that we, applicants that we get. And again, new dwelling units. In total, we added about 1,473 new dwelling units. And you look at the permits. That's 969 new multifamily dwelling units, 292 new single-family, and 212 new townhomes. And then lastly, again, the construction valuation, it's very similar to the mid-year calendar update. It was, so in fiscal year 22, the total construction valuation was $668 million. That's a 53% increase from fiscal year 21, which was also, which you can see that's just amazing to me. But I wanted to wrap this up just saying that despite everything going on in the world, we're still having pretty strong development activity going on right now. And our development services team is still extremely busy. We never know what's going to happen moving forward, so we're going to continue to monitor and hope. And I will be back with you all in a couple of months to give you a third quarter activity report. But with that, I want to thank you all for listening to my presentation, and I would be glad to answer any questions.
Go ahead, Alderman Brown.
Thank you, and well done. You're just making yourself at home here. I love it. What's the timing between an approved development by the board and a permit, a building permit being pulled? Like, what's the timeline?
I know Tom can jump into.
That
Depends is a good
It depends, yeah.
It's vastly dependent upon the applicant, the contractor, and how quickly they want to move forward. You know,
Yeah, but what's
well,
typical? Yeah.
if your development plan is, as soon as your development plan is approved by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, they could submit their site plan the next month. And your site plan review process is 35 to 38 days through Planning Commission, if it has to go to the Planning Commission. And then if they aren't approved then, they have a cycle of, as soon as their plans are ready, they can submit. There again, remember, we do one stop for planning projects, site plans, every first and third Wednesday, just like advertisement. Well done. But I would say typically, the site plan approval process, when they're ready to go, 4 to 6 months. And once the site plans are approved, you usually work on the building plans at the same time. It could be as, our building plan review for non-residential, 20 business days for the initial review, and 10 business days for each subsequent review after that. So 4 to 6 months for site plan approval to start moving dirt, and then 6 to 8 weeks, they could have building plans approved.
So we've got a couple banners down the hall that have those timelines on it and spell out with the time frame within which they will get their response. And we hit those time frames every time. So that's a service commitment that we take very seriously. When you get into construction, inspections are done same day or next day, typically. So we try to be very responsive in helping that process move along once the approvals are gained.
Yeah, my biggest question was just trying to, as we think about the forecast, as you look at those spikes, we're
flow,
talking about
yeah.
6 months post approval of something, you know, where are we really seeing those hit versus when we're actually looking at them, reviewing them. So anyway, thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, Catherine. Nice job. Item number 6, Alderman Berger has shared with us that the Thales Academy would like to defer that until the October 11th work session. So we'll move on to item number 7, which is City of Franklin Contract 2022-0104 with EMF Property Holdings for a road impact fee offset agreement for an amount not to exceed $1,563,391.
This is the EMF K-Love corporate office development. They have eligible roadway improvements they're doing on collector roads. We're pulling eligible collector fees in that region to help pay for it, and that 1.56 is the amount that this agreement provides for. So I don't know if there's anything else we want to add.
Maybe two things. Thank you again. The 1.56 is the amount that has been generated in the Reams-Fleming development with Ramsey and the Boyle building that they built for Aetna Insurance and now EMF. So the improvements that they'll be making are permanent improvements to Paytonsville Road at the intersection of McBride Drive. They'll be a little bit over $2 million, and EMF would recoup 1.5, a little bit north of that, and they would pay the difference. They also need to pay some, out of their own pocket, some temporary improvements to Paytonsville Road to improve that intersection as far as sight lines go. I should also say, too, that in talking with Sam Wallington, who's a representative, and he's here this evening from EMF, that they are still in conversations with representatives from the developer, Boyle, as well as Ramsey, to maybe come back with a modified road impact fee agreement that look to more holistically of how they can improve or make improvements to a larger section of Paytonsville Road. And we had some discussions, but they wanted to get this approved, which would be on the agenda in 2 weeks, so they can get started. They've received a grading permit, and they want to get on with construction. That's it.
Item 8, Amendment 1 to the City of Franklin Contract 2020-0123 Parkland Construction and Dedication Agreement between the City of Franklin, Franklin Capital Investment LLC, and Vintage Franklin LLC for the property known as Vintage at Watson Glen PUD subdivision.
This is a name change only, so it's very straightforward.
Item 9, ongoing evaluation of sanitation and environmental services contracts regarding hauling and disposal of municipal solid waste and disposal of recyclables.
Just to say a couple words of introduction before Mark and Jack step in on this. One of the things we've worked hard on for a long time is to have long-term sustainability related to our municipal solid waste disposal and recycling programs. And that's something that Jack and Mark have been working on for some time. We have sort of a framework of a go-forward that we want to walk through with you that adds time to the capacity that we have at landfill and for recycling, and some updated approaches to that we think will serve us well. And so this sets the stage for some agreements or amendments to agreements that you may see in the next few months. So this is to kind of give you the overview and strategy around it and some of the modifications we're looking at, and then start bringing some specifics back to you over the next few months. So Mark or Jack, take it away.
So before Jack jumps in, can you hear me? Okay. I just wanted to give a little background. So we have contracts with both Bi-County Solid Waste as well as Marshall County Recycling. We've had these contracts in place since 2012 and 2014. The city of Franklin is well positioned in these contracts, and there has been some concern over these past few years of significant change about the sustainability of the contract. So staff has been digging into it, and Jack's going to run through a handful of slides here and see if we could get some feedback from y'all and see where we want to go. So with that, go ahead, Jack.
I've seen everybody. Thank you for your time. What we're going to discuss, as we've already iterated, is the recycling contract and our MSW contract. And with the MSW contract, we're going to be talking about the landfill itself and hauling of the waste to the landfill and the potential for compaction at our transfer station and why. Of course, the world has changed a lot since 2012, and the city has enjoyed very favorable contracts for both entities. But times have changed, and we want to maintain a relationship that's sustainable for both parties. And so we've been meeting with Marshall County, we've been meeting with Pike County. I've been to the Pike County board meeting to have discussion on how we can continue a partnership. Our goals are to establish predictable cost at commercial rates, long-term contracts for the next 10 years, enhance capacity of a transfer station for both residential collection by the city of Franklin and private haulers that come in, and be consistent with ongoing efforts staff seeks to identify operational efficiencies, manage cost, and enhance services. The transfer station's approaching its daily capacity. We have a permit with TDEC for 500 tons a day capacity. We've had days we've breached that slightly. We average our low day is 300 tons a day. Some busy days we go over 500 and some in between that. We're kind of landlocked there at the transfer station, so we don't have a lot of options for expanding. And that leads to the discussion of compaction to increase the life of the transfer station for the next several years also. First, we'll talk about Marshall County recycling. The current contract was established in 2014. After 2 3-year extensions will expire November 25th, 2026. We had Amendment 3 that expired actually July 31st, which included a tip fee of $25 a ton. And for new members, it originally started out at 0 tip fee. And that changed pretty drastically and quickly all around about the time COVID hit. China's policy called the National Sword was announced actually in 2017, and most of the U.S. didn't take it seriously. But then in January 2021, China announced they're not taking it anymore. So, and in that time between 2017 and 2021, the U.S. didn't do anything in-house to prepare for what happened. And as a result, the days of getting paid for recycling are gone, 0 tip fees are gone. There's always going to be a processing fee. It's just a matter of who with and how much that fee is going to be going on into the future. The city is working on a contract amendment to make the terms of our partnership more sustainable. We know the current rates, there's not a lot of competition. We know a lot of the current rates at the private haulers. And what we are proposing over the life of the contract is that in $5 increments, add $5 to their processing fee. So basically, it conclusion of the contract in 2026, we'll be at right at $50 a ton. We'll be paying processing for recycling.
So Jack, what's current market? If we were in the market today on recycling, what's your estimate?
Well, I can tell you Marshall County approached me wanting us to pay $60 a ton.
But if you
Right
went to
away.
like Waste Management, it's $65 a ton.
Plus, yes.
So we're still well below market, but the market has changed dramatically from when this contract was originally done.
And some are paying $100 a ton in Nashville. It depends on how clean your stream is. We're fortunate enough, we've got a good stream, and we could probably get in there for 55 to 60 just because we've got a clean waste stream of recyclables. We've got very low contamination here in the city of Franklin.
So one thing that Jack had mentioned is that what we're proposing, at least as it stands right now, is a $5 incremental increase annually. While we don't expect the cost of recycling to go down, that's a potential. And this contract amendment will contain language we don't want to spend more than, what the market rate is calling for. So there has to be a provision in there, if it doesn't continue to increase, that we maintain that market rate. So we're working on language on the contract, or a draft amendment, to make sure that we don't hurt ourselves in the long run should recycling costs go down. So that's just wanted to make sure that we're thinking about how that looks. So that's it for recycling. I wanted to see if we can get any feedback from you all on this piece, and then we'll jump into the solid waste part.
What's the tipping fee for Tri-Counties then, on what's not recyclable?
For Bi-County?
Yeah.
I don't know what Bi-County, so we work with their recycling processing facility.
I mean,
No, they're
for
They're-
trash,
Oh, Bi-County.
They're trash.
municipal solid waste.
Municipal solid waste,
37.
$36 a ton,
$37. a ton.
37
And 3
$37.
cents.
and 3 cents.
Yeah.
And
For Bi-County, for just landfill.
Landfill.
where are we going to now?
Right.
Correct.
So we're being asked then to exceed that to be able to recycle.
By the year 2025, we'll probably be exceeding the landfill cost. 2020,
2023 to 2024.
yeah,
There's
2023
a
to
mandate you have to
2024.
recycle so much also, isn't there, or divert?
And I'm not suggesting we
Yeah.
gotta recycle, don't misunderstand, but
Right.
I'm just saying,
No, that cost is continuing to, all these costs are continuing to
continue to
rise.
go up.
But there used to be a significant difference
Difference.
between landfilling and recycling, and that is going like this and is going to probably
It's going
pass
the
each
other-
other.
yep.
3 years out or so,
So
based on what
the
we're seeing.
question is do we want to continue to recycle is one of them. And as we've talked about, we've had a zero tip fee, with the exception of the sort of those COVID tip fees that we talked about.
so what is your plan to recycle or put this back onto the resident of Franklin? Right now, you buy the blue buggy, and you got $20 and something in to, I guess, to have the black cart dumped.
Right.
So would you do a blue buggy fee?
No, the fee you pay is for all of it.
It's for
It
the
covers
blue-
everything.
Blue and that.
The only thing you're paying is the upfront registration cost for that blue
Right.
bin.
Okay.
After that, it's in your
It's in the
monthly fee.
$20 and $21.
Your monthly fee covers everything, from the curbside trash pickup, the recycling, the brown bag, the yard waste. All of that is in that. We have a one fee approach. So you could always look at that as an option, but to this point, we've chosen to make it
Right.
simplified. Whatever you put out, pretty much, we take for that one fee.
And we're in the middle of a 10-year cost analysis, and we're looking at a lot of that type stuff, just like you asked. And at what point do we separate it, or do we have to adjust the fee? So we're not there yet, but
Yeah, one of the assignments is to do a sort of a cost of service like you've done on water and sewer, where there's sort of a 5-year cost projection and rate outlook. And we plan to bring you that same sort of structure on sanitation, so you can see where we are. We compare very favorably the costs charged by private haulers and other communities, and have a service level that's at a higher level, generally speaking. So it's all about how you want to structure fees and what services you want to incorporate in a base fee. So those are all be decisions, choices, options we can talk about as we gear up for a new budget next year, but that's work that Jack and Margaret and our team are working on right now to give you a sense of all these costs together. But this does give us cost certainty. We're working on cost certainty, cost structures that are below what market is delivering, even though it's higher than what we're accustomed to paying. We're still substantially below what we're seeing other places in the market, and how that translates into both our service level and our fee structure.
Right, so we look forward to having a cost of service analysis to you all towards the end of the calendar year. We're waiting on audited numbers from finance, which will come out here, I would think, fairly soon, so.
Last question. Any other options other than Marshall County?
There are other options beyond Marshall County, but as Jack indicated, those tipping fees are $60, $65 a ton.
That's not an option.
Yeah, they appear to be significantly higher. One of the things to note on both of these is they're both governmental partners. Bi-County is two counties that have formed a solid waste authority. And then Marshall County, of course, is part of Marshall County's structure. So we do both of these through interlocal agreements with those entities. We do compare what's going on in the market. We could bid these services out, but we have a pretty good sense of where the market is. So we're not sure that's a great use of our time when we can negotiate these costs that are below what we're seeing in the market for other communities, other haulers. So that is an option. We just don't see any indication that we'll do any better. In fact, we think it'll be significantly higher than what we have been working through with these other partners.
Another piece we're considering too is that we have a pretty substantial volume brought to Marshall County on a relative basis. Their survivability is important to us because their fees are quite low relative to the rest of the market. So, at $0 a ton, I guess an equity issue comes into play and a sustainability issue for them, and can they survive? That's something that we've talked about, and we don't have any hard numbers to support that discussion, but there is a concern there that if we,
But one of the big things that hit them during COVID was they were using prison help, and that ended at COVID, and they never returned. So they realized another cost that they weren't used to paying labor, so.
Go ahead, Alderman Potts.
Thank you, sir. So if you would just clarify, because right now when we're looking at recycling, this does not include glass, correct?
Correct.
Are there plans as you go to look at a 10-year contract to expand our recycling services to include glass, even though I do recognize right out of the gate, as Alderman Barnhill referenced the blue bin, that putting glass in that contaminates that, so it becomes a separate container or a separate option. Are there any plans for glass recycling?
We're looking at some options. The most cost-effective option would be to have a centralized place for people to bring glass. And just finding that place is a challenge. Our site, we've maxed out just about every inch with our operations. But we're looking into that. There may be some partnership with the county that we can explore. But that's the most cost-effective way to manage the glass stream is to have a centralized drop-off that nothing goes there but glass. And
the cost of recycling glass is high. The other piece too is, and there was discussion in an earlier item, that the county used to have these kind of locations at Kroger, et cetera, and those locations were not staffed. And what you would see was all kinds of cross-contamination between glass and paper recycling. And I think Nancy Zion had mentioned they had found a deer in one of the bins at one point, and there's all kinds of stuff.
Oh,
that
yeah,
gets
it's,
put
yeah,
in there,
you,
so-
you've got unmanned, open containers. Human nature is there's somewhere for me to dump something. And if they're not manned, you'll just have a little dump, is what they turn into. And that's why I think they moved them all out.
Alderman Baggett has a question.
Real quick.
We need to keep moving.
We'll keep moving. What it said though, in 2026, we're going to market rate. So just this study, I mean,
Yeah.
last point, we're going to the $65.
But that's today's
Possibly.
market rate.
Today, that's what I'm saying.
So in 2026, you can bet market rate's going to be well above 65.
Fair. So that is significant cost to the citizens. So on this study, I mean, I know you will be showing us this, but we really need to look at that closely in our fee structure, because in 4 years, 4 or 5, we're going to market rate on this.
So
And
curbside
that's what it
recycling, we
looks like.
collect about 3,000
Current market rate,
tons.
yeah.
Yeah, that-
3,000
it-
I
currently in
would say our
26.
goal is to consistently be below market. And I would suggest that 65 in 2025, or $50 in 2025 is going to be well
Below.
below.
Right.
There'll be some adjustment inflationary from that base, but we would expect that remains a significant chunk below market. But the point is the same. We're going to be at a higher level cost per ton than we are today.
Well, in 2020,
Yeah.
the last bullet point says in 2026, we're
Yeah.
going to current market conditions for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
The current in
That's after the-
2026.
That's after this initial term that
Yeah.
we're proposing. So
Yeah.
I will say that annually, right now, we do about 3,000 tons of recycling. So at $50 a ton, that's about $150,000. It's a significant dollar figure relative to the entire operation. It's a relatively small piece.
Yeah, it's not a huge
And I guess yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that was out there as well, so.
Yeah, and we keep up with what's going on. And, you know, that it's not to say something between now and 2026 won't develop and give everybody another option that's going to be the answer and cost effective. And we'll look at that when that happens.
I know we've got an item coming up here soon, so we got to keep moving here, right?
All right, yeah, let's get on to Buck County Municipal Solid Waste. The current contract is very, very favorable terms for the city. However, the terms have introduced significant challenges for Buck County. In a nutshell, Buck County, the contracts were entered into were all good faith. It's a very good contract for the city of Franklin. Buck County decided they wanted to try hauling business, so they gave us a number that included hauling in their tip fee. And they probably found out within a year or two that they didn't need to be in that business. And then forward 4 more years, and they decided they can contract out the hauling, sub that part out of our contract cheaper than they could haul it themselves. And subsequently, they haven't done well with our contract. The current gate rate at Buck County is $24 a ton. If you were just driving in, paying a gate rate, no contract or anything. What we have proposed and actually favor is we would like to take the transportation out of the current contract with Buck County. We've got a solicitation out now. There's going to be a pre-bid this Thursday for potential bidders to look at the hauling and compaction option at our transfer station. The current contract is unique. Nobody in the business bids at lump sum like that. It just don't happen. So by separating this out, it gives us more control of our waste. You know, we're going to look at bids for what it would cost to haul to each landfill within a 100-mile radius of here. So we'll have a set cost for the term of the contract. If something happens at this landfill, we've got the next one to go around. Right now, we're stuck.
Can I jump in real quick, Jack?
Go ahead.
So I know in the essence of time here, so one of the other pieces when we break out the hauling element is we're looking at compaction. Jack had mentioned earlier that there are days that we approach the permanent capacity of our transfer station. And that's okay, it's on an average, it's not a daily. So we're looking at a compaction piece as well. And what we believe that will help us do is, in essence, expand the capacity of the transfer station pretty significantly. In doing that, you would offset very significant costs in terms of capital investments in the future when we need to expand beyond our current capacity. So I know we need to keep moving. So again, Eric mentioned both of these contracts are with governmental entities. In the short term, the city's going to end up paying more money if we head this direction. We acknowledge that. But we think in the long term, we'll be able to establish a sustainable relationship with these partners that we've had for a long time and have really competitive rates relative to the market for better part of a 10-year period. And again, I think we always continue to look at how we can efficiently run and also sustainability with our partners. And those are the big kind of pieces I wanted to have as a takeaway. So with that, I'll throw it back to the mayor.
Kind of the other summary of that is we're trading some short-term costs for longer-term capacity, sustainability, and I would submit probably cheaper over the long haul as well, because we're putting in place a structure that still remains below market for most of that 10-year period. So that's what we're trying to work on. We think there's general agreement on that, but we wanted to run this by you and let you know where we're headed and the agreements that you will see. We're still hammering out all the details. We'll reflect that in the coming months. So.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That is a very modern landfill. They collect gas off the garbage. How about the discussion regarding the city judge candidates, how we want to move forward? And in your packet, if you'll notice that there were some dates. Judge Hood finishes at the end of this month, and we were hoping, it's a 2-reading ordinance to approve the next judge. And we were contemplating a vote at the next meeting and plus a special session before one of our, Capital Improvement Committee maybe, and to do the second vote on the judge. But what's the pleasure of the board, how they would like to proceed? Sure,
Can
go
I say
ahead.
something first? I just want to walk through this with you a little bit in terms of giving you an overview and then get your guidance on how you want to move forward. Since May, we've run a process to try to identify candidates. I would say it's pretty close to what we would do if we were hiring a department director in the city, where we post the position, we gather resumes, look at those backgrounds, make sure they fit the minimum requirements as defined in the position, and then we interview them, evaluate them, and try to work through that process. In this case, we received 19 applicants, 17 of which met the minimum requirements. 15 of those 17 agreed to interviews in the first interview round. So from that group of the first interview round, we identified the 5 that scored the highest and gave them a second interview to get to know them better. We also asked them to participate in a writing exercise where they took 2 different fictional cases that might be typical of what you see at city court and issued a ruling in that and incorporated a description of that opinion in that second interview as well. You all got to meet 4 of those 5, those 4 or 5 top scoring candidates last week in an open house type of or a reception type of setting. And so at this point, we did provide you with what we would call in a typical HR process, a certification list. It shows the top 5 folks and how they scored out in those different stages, and both the presentation and the interview rounds. I think our as a staff team, we also met to just sort of discuss where we were in the process. And I would summarize a consensus among the staff group that did the interviews, and that group is comprised of representatives from the police department, building and neighborhood services, law department, our city court staff, HR, administration. So all folks that have a pretty regular interaction with city court and with the judge. And we felt all five, especially all five that scored top in the first round and through that second interview, all represented themselves really well, would be very good candidates. I do believe, and I think the consensus of the group was, especially the top two that scored out, separated themselves in this process as well. All these are good candidates. I think the scores reflect the consensus of our interview panel, but that's the kind of typical interview process and what that delivered. It's now really a handoff to you all about how you want to use that information, if you want staff to do additional work on this, or if you want to do additional work in evaluating candidates and making the decision. That is your prerogative and what you guide from here. We're sort of handing off a process that is reflective of a typical kind of professional, objective process that we do in trying to identify candidates for a position, and giving you that final say, which is yours by our ordinance. As the mayor said, Judge Hood's resignation is effective August 31st. Have no idea where you want to go from here. If we want to try to get the person in place, there is a path to do that by, you have to have 2 votes because it's an ordinance. That's what the city charter says. So we would have a vote on the 23rd, your normally scheduled meeting. An option could be, if you want to have this done by the 31st, is to do a special meeting on the 25th for the sole purpose of having your final vote. Do it maybe between your capital investment committee and your planning commission meeting, just because most of you will be here for that, if you're comfortable at this point in terms of the voting. From there, if you want to go longer, if you want to push it out, that's something we can work with. We have worked with guest or visiting judges to help us fill when Judge Hood can't be here. We would treat it like that. We do want to have a little bit of ramp up and orientation time with the new judge, just to get them familiar with processes and how things work overall. But that really gives you where we are. A really good group of candidates across the board, and I think we'll be in good hands however you choose, and we're here to support you in what you need in making a final determination and decision on this. So,
Alderman Brown.
Well, first of all, I appreciate every candidate throwing their name in the hat. I thought there was a lot of great people in there, and I love that our city attracts that kind of talent from within our city and outside. Thanks to the staff, because I thought you did elevate some really top-notch people. I thought the ones in the top of the score were fantastic, and for me personally, I landed where the staff did on the top 2. I think that's a tough one at the end of the day, but I'm ready to go. So from my point of view, I don't need any more time or deliberation. I think the references were fantastic. Feedback was great. The process was good. The cases were and I thought the meet and greet was a pretty critical step. So I'm ready to go from my point of view.
Go ahead, Alderman Hanson.
Question for you. I know we have a scoring scale that we've seen, but we have no idea as BOMA what the criteria was to come up with those points. Can you please share that?
Is that something you want me to discuss now?
I think the public should know what the point system was based on, because we certainly don't know. So it would be helpful to me, and then the public and anybody that might want to apply for a future position, so they kind of have an idea.
What we do is we base scoring on all interviews for the city on our 5 principles, and we simply break it down into maybe 2 questions per principle, maybe 3. And we just try to judge based on the interview questions, how they respond.
So you're not looking for any, it's more like the presentation and the in-depth information that they're sharing. Is that what you're saying?
Right, presentation, but also in terms of the interview itself. As you know, there's an interview, the interview process, we grade them based on that same criteria.
Yeah, so this is the same scoring we use for all employees. We look at these 5 core values, but then we have several other qualities that get at being a good team member.
Can we
and being
share those
effective.
5 core
Absolutely.
values with the public? What are
Absolutely.
those?
Well,
I
they're
don't
the
know.
banners that are right in your
Right, the
hallway.
ones that are- but the
And
public
they
doesn't
are,
always come in.
Yeah, sure. They're excellence, innovation, teamwork, integrity, and being action-oriented. So those are a 5 core, and then there's probably 8 or 9 other qualities that we rate. In this case, with the presentation, we did have a specific rating related to that. That was 4 or 5 qualities related to the writing quality, the clarity of the ruling, those sort of things. So we can give you both those score sheets, and we could easily provide you that tonight. So it's pretty straightforward. It's the kind of the same measuring stick we use in all of our hiring processes.
Gotcha. And I agree, like, I don't think there was a bad one in the bunch, and
No.
it had to have been a really hard process to get to that, and they were all fantastic. I will say, I feel like, in all fairness to the one candidate that was not available, because that person did go through this process, I feel like we should be fair and wait and interview them when they're available to be interviewed as soon as they get back. I know they're out of the country and it was a conflict and it's not their fault, but they did go through the process, and we owe them that opportunity since they were in the top 5. And since we were interviewing 2 at a time, maybe we could have a BOMA wild card pick and we each throw in a name that we'd like to interview ourselves. And if we can all agree on one that comes up with the highest number, we can throw them in the mix with the other one. What do you think?
When you say interview, you're talking about the reception part of it?
Right, exactly. Instead of just having one person, then we'd have 2, and it would be one other person that each of us could email in to you that was a BOMA pick that we liked, and I'm sure there would be one name that came up more than once amongst us, and then we get a wild card pick.
Not a bad idea. But let me ask you something. Yes.
Go ahead, Alderman Berg.
I would say, though, the only thing I see is that the top 5 did the presentation as well. The other ones did not, and they did not do the second
Right.
oral. So they were left out of both of those. Although,
You don't typically interview everybody twice.
Yeah.
There's a,
Yeah.
you reduce it down to a smaller group of candidates.
Right,
That's a
right.
typical
Exactly,
process.
exactly. I
So
understand
That's
that.
what we followed.
Yeah, I saw somebody.
There was no scoring assigned to your meet and greet. So
No,
from a
okay.
scoring
No, that's
equity
not.
standpoint, at that point, everybody got rated the same. That's not to diminish that you're welcome, and we'll set up meeting the 5th candidate or the candidate that wasn't able to make that reception,
fair.
if you'd like. So however you want to handle that. But just from a process scoring standpoint, they weren't disadvantaged from that because we didn't assign anything. That was just a chance
was
for you
number
to
4.
get comfortable, but we certainly can accommodate that if you'd like.
And
you may
to
ask
answer your question, I pulled up so I think you want me to send this to you, but also say it now so everyone can understand what it is. It's excellence at course, action-oriented and innovation, teamwork, integrity, and here are the additional ones Eric was talking about. Technical skills, problem solving, communication, time management, adaptability, interpersonal skills, candidate interest, coachability, and attitude. So those
Yep.
are all there.
Those are good. Great.
And we will follow up by emailing them to you.
Can I ask that 5th, that candidate that did not come, I think it was number 4, is that correct?
Yes.
That we get a sort of with you on that, Gabrielle, but maybe you could contact them and when they come back, and I don't know if they're back yet, and ask them if they still have an interest.
Absolutely.
Because if they are, and they were in the top 5, I think you're right. In all fairness, you probably should do that, because it wasn't their fault they couldn't be here. You know, just like somebody had COVID too, and but they did a Zoom at least.
I could,
So, you know, I wouldn't be opposed to that.
I could say that person would still have interest, but if you want me to call them, I could.
I think it's fair.
Alderman Baggett?
Well, Alderman Peterson is
Well,
waiting.
I was just going to say, it's my understanding, the meeting with all of us that they went through, there were no points given for
Right.
that. So really, this is what has been done by the people who were involved with interviewing all of the people and everything. And I'm the same way. Everybody seemed extremely capable to me. But I don't know that there's anything that we could add to what's already been done.
Alderman Baggett, and then Alderman Barnhill, the bees,
I think,
and then Alderman Potts.
and this is just for the future, I think kind of what I've heard and hearing is that maybe after that first, we watched all the videos. And I think if we could have put in some of our, like scored them ourselves and got them into our numbers into the mix with I think that would have, because there are some that didn't make the top 5 that I think, I think we would have wanted our, and we can bring them back in. There's nothing to say we can't bring them back in now. And so I totally understand that. And I don't think that us not being able to do that influenced the process at all. But I mean, I think we probably would have shaken out the same. But I think that would have been something that I think I would have liked. But I still think we've got great candidates who did make the top 5. I'm not, I watched the first 2 interviews and read and then the presentation as well. And so I feel like I've gotten pretty good feel for the top 5. Did have some personal interaction with 4 of the 5. I don't know that I would feel compelled to interview the last candidate, but I would do whatever the board wanted to do. I mean, whatever the will of the rest of the board is. I don't think it would. I mean, out of fairness, it's fine, but I think if that it's not going to change probably my perspective just based on the interviews, the recorded interviews and presentation.
Alderman Barnhill.
If what we did does not reflect on this right here, there's not much need of us, there's not much need of me, it may be some need of somebody else, sitting around and doing that same thing again with another candidate and a wild card that we pick out of here someplace. So I'm satisfied that if the numbers match up and what you've got, you could throw a blanket over the first 2 or 3, definitely throw a blanket over the first 2 and not do anything else. I mean, I would expect you to make the recommendation. I would expect you to ask each of us at some point in time, somewhere, what our recommendations are as far as what this list is, and then make your recommendation to the full board. I don't see that it's necessary to do a heck of a lot more. It's no need of going back and sitting down for another 35 or 45 minutes with the person who unfortunately had a circumstance which required him to be out of town, because it has nothing to do with the numbers total here.
So, well, I'll tell you straight up, the way we normally do a hiring, we have what we call rule of 3, which means you can hire the top 3 in the scores. That's a normal hiring process. That gives you a little bit of latitude, because scoring is scoring. There's always a little bit of latitude there, so you need to give yourself some flexibility, and also just what's a fit. Sometimes you just have a sense of who's going to fit a position. So I'm just talking generally there. I think this scoring is very reflective. And if I was hiring it as a city position, I would probably hire the top scored person. But I say by the same token, both of those top 2 in particular separated themselves out. And so I don't think you're going to go wrong with any of your top 5. I especially don't think you're going to go wrong with any of those top 2. It's a really close call. And I guess I would rely on the collective judgment of this group of folks, as well as whatever you all picked up from it to make that call. You get to make it. But I would recommend you follow the scoring. If you said make a recommendation, which I think that's what Alderman Barnhill's asked me to do, that's what I would do. But I can easily see any of the top 3 if we used a rule of 3, which is typical. But especially the top 2, I think were excellent and a really good fit, both for the role, for working with our city court staff, et cetera. So I think that was a clear consensus among the team. That's not just me, but part of what you hire me for is to make recommendations sometimes too. So I'm giving you my best thought on that as well.
So, and Eric, I'm glad to hear you say that about the rule of 3. and I'll be very brief. I agree with what Alderman Barnhill just said. I mean, from what we see here as far as the top two, top three, you guys have done a phenomenal job of bringing us qualified candidates, and the comment was made about how we attract great candidates. I personally don't see the need to have, with all due respect, another in-person, just from the numbers perspective right here. I don't think it's going to change it that much, and I think I already know where I am on it, and I do support, Eric, your recommendation for having the meeting on the 23rd and then having the vote on the 25th. If that works within everybody's schedule, to go ahead and move that forward so we don't have that lapse. So that's where I am.
Go ahead, Alderman Berger.
Yep, I agree, Alderman Potts. Ditto.
And I look forward to a vote on the 23rd, and if there's a tie, I'm ready to break.
And so are you comfortable with us doing a special meeting, probably 4:45 on the 25th of August, if you're comfortable with that?
Well,
Okay.
if, Mayor, if that's what you want, we'll try to accommodate you.
You've never disappointed. Well, we're going to have to postpone the, I'm sorry, what did I say?
4:45, yeah, if that's okay with you all. Between CIC and planning workshop.
I see a lot of disappointment over there in the corner.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry. We'll see you in just a few minutes after 7.